A proposal by Missouri politicians wants to make it illegal for local jurisdictions to have rental registration programs that landlords have to abide by. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of the great state of Missouri. Now, Missouri has had a lot of interesting laws that they have proposed or passed recently, and they're very pro-landlord. Now, I actually wish that I still invested there. I used to own properties in Independence, Missouri, but I sold them just last year, and it was a great place to invest. Okay, it's very landlord friendly. The rents that you get are pretty good. The only problem I saw was that some local jurisdictions were passing a lot of very burdensome regulations that made it extremely difficult to be a landlord. So an example of that would be like how Kansas City had actually passed a law requiring landlords to accept Section 8 vouchers. Now, I am obviously not I'm not in favor of those sort of laws. Now, my whole position is that it should be up to the individual landlord whether they want to participate in these government programs or not. Okay, now I used to take Section 8 tenants when I owned my properties in Missouri. Big mistake, because it was a nightmare dealing with the housing authority and all of the nonsense that goes along with it. Not to mention the tenants were usually not the best. But I do not want to be forced to take it by the government. So one of the laws that they're proposing right now is actually one that will get rid of these rental registration programs. Now, I absolutely hate rental registration. I think that it punishes bad landlords and that it doesn't actually stop these, it punishes good landlords, right? And it doesn't actually stop the bad landlords. And that's one of the things that I have a big issue with a lot of the laws that are passed. They go after good landlords and they screw the bad landlords. Excuse me. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. So what do you think of rental registration programs? Do you think that it actually increases the quality of housing within a city? Do you think that they're actually necessary? I don't, okay? I think that, like myself, the majority of other landlords are already going to comply with the law. They're going to do whatever they can to make the most money that they possibly can. And keeping their properties in bad shape does not make money. It's not profitable, okay? And it's not safe. So what is the point of these rental registration programs? I think it's a cash grab. It's a cash grab to fund whatever else, okay? And it's a way that a lot of good landlords can get caught up into a bunch of fines and mess, okay? And I can't agree with that. So anyway, put a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think of these things, and let's get into the article. This article is coming from fox4kc.com, and it says, Missouri bill could take away funding for the Healthy Homes program. Let's see what this says, because the article and everything, it goes from a different sort of perspective. But anyway, let me get into it. Missouri House Bill 1316, which aims to eliminate rental registrations, was discussed during a committee meeting Tuesday at the state capitol. The measure's potential to eliminate funding for healthy homes and similar programs across Missouri concerns some Kansas City metro health officials. Republican Missouri State Representative Hardy Billington introduced House Bill 1316. He explained some of his reasons for the measure during Tuesday's committee meeting. So anytime you add a cost to a landlord, they've got to add that cost to each month people pay rent. And rent is already high, and you don't want to increase that cost, Billington said Tuesday. I'd be willing to bet that Billington himself is a landlord, because that sounds like something I would say, okay? And I mean, it's common sense. He's either a landlord or a business owner, and he understands that, hey, you're putting an additional cost and additional burden. Now, I don't care if the rental registration is only supposedly $100, right? The reason they put these rental registration programs in place is so that, hey, you got to have your property inspected. And then once the property is inspected, the inspector comes in there, marks a whole list of garbage that usually doesn't really need to be fixed, but you have to fix it anyway. It's going to cost you a whole bunch of money. Now, in the case of Section 8 inspections, after my re-inspection, I had to pay over $1,000 to fix the things that they claimed were in violation. So I had to pay $1,000 after the Section 8 inspection for a tenant who already lived there, mind you. Give me a break. Okay, absolutely idiotic, and I just don't agree with it. The stuff was, none of it was true, heavy safety violations. It was all just minor garbage that just added up. And so when you're talking about, hey, when I get my property inspected after the rental registration, I have to fix all this stuff, and it costs me a whole bunch more. Well, I have to charge the tenant more money in order to make up for those costs. And that leads to, you guessed it, higher rents. Now, this should be obvious to everyone, but it isn't to a lot of these activists and these advocates for tenants' rights. Both Jackson County and Kansas City health officials say they've seen rental inspection programs positively impact both landlords and tenants. They help the tenants because it gives them another avenue if their property owner, their landlord, is not responding to something in their dwelling that might be a health hazard. They can go to the city for additional resources to help with that issue, said Megan Sinney, policy coordinator for Jackson County Public Health. Well, let's talk about that for a second here. There's this helps the tenants because they can go to the city if there's something that is a major issue. Well, they could already do that, okay? We're not talking about them coming in there and fixing major issues or going after a landlord for these major things. There should always be a method that you can report a landlord for major safety issues or major issues such as, like heat being out, etc. There always has been a method for that. These registration programs, they do not to fix that, they don't add anything to that. The only thing it really does is makes it so that the good landlords, which is 99% of us, only 1% of landlords or less are actually not doing what they're supposed to do. Do you think I want the heat off in my place, the heat not working, so that my pipes freeze and bust, and then there's no water in my place, and then I have a really, really expensive fix that I have to do? Of course not. Okay, most landlords would be like, hey, that's stupid. Why would I leave my stuff broken? But they seem to think that, hey, well, the majority of landlords, they would never fix anything unless the registration program is there. That's idiocy. Of course we would. Okay, there's no profit to be made by having a whole bunch of broken down, crappy properties where nothing works. They're just too dumb to realize that, hey, profit incentive is more important to us than what the government claims that we need to do. My issue is when they come, oh, no, look at this peeling paint here. This peeling paint, this is a major issue. You need to repaint your entire house because you got a little bit of peeling paint here on the outside. Not even inside where the tenant lives. Or, you go through and you pay, and this is one that got me. I went through, I own older homes, right? And I had mold remediation done, cost me a couple grand. It was not cheap. And I had it mold inspected and all that. And then I have to pay additional money to a city to come in there and say, hey, well, you know what, this isn't up to our standards. And I'm like, listen, I paid, for the inspection. I had, the air tested, quality tested. It's good. You can't sit here and tell me that I did something wrong. So, there's no pleasing bureaucrats sometimes. There's no pleasing. And I understand, when we're talking about stuff for tenants, that they are going to want, they're living in that place. They want it to be safe. They want it to be up to quality standards, right? But don't go so far beyond the standards that it costs me 10 times more. That's what my big issue is. And that's what a lot of these rental registration programs, inspection programs are pushing. And that's why I'm so opposed to them. Because you know what? They're just only going to make things more expensive in the long run. And at first, landlords are going to eat that cost, right? Because they're with a tenant who has a lease. But you know what? That very next time that when that tenant goes to renew that lease and they see that their rent has gone up by several $100s a month, they're going to be thinking to themselves, well, why is my rent going up? I read all these stories. These tenants, they're just so confused about why rent is going up. But meanwhile, the cost of everything has gone up. And you know what? That is just the consequence. So What do you think of all this stuff that's going on in the state of Missouri? Do you think this is a good idea to get rid of rental registration, or do you think it's a bad idea? Let me know in the comment section down below.